Maxwell. Um, I'm attempting to launch Still Pot is my podcast that I have for my Teach Me to Cook brand. And the idea really is to help improve and introduce new lines of communication with my family members that are still incarcerated. I had this idea to come up with and make connections around personal recipes. So for this first podcast, I want to discuss some of the stuff that connected me to food and the family and all that stuff while I was incarcerated. So I've been home going on 2 years now. I was released August 2019. August 19th, 2023, and I did 13 years. And so during that time, I became a vegan twice. A lot of it was due to nutrition, and we weren't getting enough nutrients in food that they were serving us. So I switched to vegetarian to get more protein and more fresh foods. And then plus the meat was questionable. And it was really after I worked on Back Dock, I had seen this sticker on during the holiday where they used to give out desserts, and it was a lime green sticker on the boxes of pumpkin pie, and it said not for human consumption. And at that point, I was like, yep, I gotta really figure out what it is I'm actually eating at this place. But I pursued a lot of cooking, and thanks to my family, I was able to get the items that I needed in canteen and packages and stuff like that. At a certain point, I would try to really budget it and start making my list specific, like really planning it out and thinking about how I'm going to use it, ways to connect it to the health, to my recipes, and really trying to explore the world. Like I was trying to travel through my palate. That's what I told myself. Because it was the only way I could find some escape, but also an escape that was in the direction of what I wanted to pursue. So I just started buying a bunch of spicy seasonings and all different type of base ingredients to start making stuff. Which actually was inspired by a cellie of mine that I had at Old Folsom. He would buy packages full of spices. And he was an Indian guy. And that's where I really started to cook at Old Folsom. Like really grilling and all that stuff, because we were eating raw meat and fresh produce from the kitchen. And so it was in there on the tier, serving stuff up, having competitions who can make the best food, and I felt like I won. But now I'm going to be doing this interview with my mom. Her name is Henrietta, and the connection with the food for us was around 2016, 17. 19. So the first conversations kind of started when I first became vegetarian. It was 2016. When I was in the hole, it was really trying to figure out the budgeting side of stuff. But we started to have more in-depth conversations in terms of the letters and like what it is that was being shared and expressed, because of the new line of communication. Because I wasn't on the main line anymore. I was in trouble and I could only write letters. And so I had to start to change my letter writing, which came later on in the 2019 shoe stint. I was informed of certain health effects that were affecting my mom and stuff like that. But what I was noticing too was some of these responses were connected to a letter or something I had just sent. And so when there was high elevation and stress stuff, it was usually around the times after I had sent something that just happened that would allow those. And so it was like, okay, and I think because my academic stuff, when I was writing and they're telling me about the storytelling and the teachers giving me good praises on like being a good storyteller, I started to really think about what words and what it is I was saying and how those things could be triggering certain emotions in other people. And so I had to really focus my writing and not be so detailed, but also provide the opportunity to understand what the details were for. So I was creating footholds in my letters almost as a form of journaling to remember the stuff that I was going through, because I didn't want to forget it, but there were stories associated to it, and the foothold allowed for me to bring those things out, because during my time, I used to, when I would have my self-search, there was a huge focus on my writings for some reason, or my stuff that I was reading. And to me, that was concerning. So I stopped sharing a lot of stuff, or stopped putting a lot of stuff on paper, because to me, I didn't understand why there was an interest in those things. And so from there, it was like, okay, I have something, how can I turn this into something? During 2017, and I'm jumping around this timeline because this is really the first time I'm speaking about these things, but in this format. But in 2017, I started the actor thing. That's where I was able to take a lot of that dead time and the activities that I was doing and apply it towards something. And so it was screenwriting. So I was able to find a good way of taking all that TV consumption, sitting instead of doing nothing, and turn it and find a way to try to turn it into something. And it was like, okay, if nothing's on during the day, but I have to be here, I'm gonna learn to watch rifleman, and I'm gonna learn about this character in rifleman and how to create a character. Start watching all these pilot episodes for different types of TV shows, and so I was able to find interest in whatever content was airing, because I started observing it and analyzing it with a purpose. Right. And so it wasn't just consuming past time. Okay, this show might be boring, but how did they start? They got something. And so it was like trying to figure that out. And so when I was really thinking like that, it gave me, and then using the acting game to express my emotions, do the emotional regulation by acting, and but be silly, which was also very therapeutic and good for me. Showed me what I can do when I got out, and so everything else in terms of food and all that stuff, it was a passion. And so it was I'm approaching things according to passion, dream, academics, it's a 5-point breakdown. I'm not gonna get too much into that,
but I just want to say this: just watching you and the group with the actors, that was one emotional, but inspiring to see the inmates all come together, different shades, different ethnicities. That was good.
Yeah, so she's speaking about the performance of Lion that we did at New Folsom in 2018. And it was just before I actually went to the shoot. But I was able to take that same experience and sit in the shoe and figure out what needs to be done to bring about that same type of emotional response, but it just felt good. Like that was like the one thing at that point. I had already been down since 2010, so 8 years at that point. Um, and so it was the first time I had been able to do something that was positive. And so,
That was a shift.
yeah. And so it was like, all right, boom. From there, how could I keep doing that? Like, I was already serious about the academic stuff, not fully committed, but my grades were going up. I was like consistent taking my courses and all that stuff.
And hearing your voice when you get your grades back, and I talked to you on the phone, just hearing the positive feedback that you were getting from, the teachers, Miss Fisher.
Yeah. Well, so all right, so that's where it really leveled up to the next level when I became a college tutor. Because after I got out the chute, I was really directional in what it is I wanted to do. Because after I finished my first chute term and got released to New Folsom, I was able to get a job in 2 days. And then there's an experience where they shipped me out to High Desert without even telling me I was being shipped out. And that almost went bad. And it almost resulted in cell extraction. But had it not been for my boss coming to speak to me, and then the other clinician, her coming to speak to me, and me having respect for them, I would have went, like, yeah, it would have went back. But I left and ended up with my first staff assault at High Desert, and from there I was doing a shoe term again. Ended up in mental health after that, and ended up back at New Folsom. But during that time, I was thinking, because I was doing a lot of writing and journaling and stuff like that. But I was doing the self-reflecting work with the help of a therapist, a clinician, and this wasn't this was actual therapy that he was helping me with, like the stuff that was really bothering me. And so from there, I was able to sit with my own like emotions, stuff like that. And that's really what it was. Like, one of the things that had a real profound change for me was sitting with my anger. And like, it was CO who just kept, every time he does his count, he's knocking on the thing, but he's shining the light in your face to make you move. And so you can be dead asleep. If you don't move, he's gonna be knocking on your thing, shining that light in your face till you move. And so they do counts every 30 minutes, by the way. He does 8-hour shift. So just imagine being woken up to that, where you're just trying to chill. Like, all you can do is sit in the cell and maybe sleep. But the things are being disrupted. And so I sat with my anger, and it went away. But the energy was able to, like, the thoughts went away associated to the anger. The energy itself was able to be transmuted, redirected into other stuff. So it was like, when I sat there, and didn't get up and say anything to him, or just lay there and try to ignore him, like, that's all putting energy into, like, and so like, when I just sat there after he did what he did, sat there, like, things started to shift, and then a couple people started telling me different ways of handling that. And they're like, if you know that's how you just get up early. Like, I didn't think about that.
He's trying to trick you.
Yeah, and so at that
Get a
point,
response from you.
it was like, now to avoid that, now I had to discipline myself to wake up before he shows up on the shit. And so now I'm in here clean, like, it got me more focused on and disciplined on what it is I need to side skirt and avoid certain things that I know was coming. And so it's like, okay, I know this was coming, so boom, how am I going to avoid it to make this process smoother for myself, but to be able to stay focused. And so I had the academics, I had the school stuff, and so it was really just hammering down on that. It's just like finding something to focus on. And so, cool.
And people do that. People are going to sit here and do things and hook you and try to get a reaction. But once you redirect how you're going to respond, and if you're going to ignore it and you're going to do this, it takes their power away. Because now you're in control of how you're going to respond to them. So if that's what he was doing, just trying to push your button, trying to get a reaction out of you, but now you changed it to where, hey, go ahead, do what you're doing. I'm doing this over here. I'm cleaning now, and you did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was interesting too was like during that time there was an audit and some lady came in and she was like, "Man, you're such a immaculate," because I had made this aquarium out of my lunch boxes, and then I had pulled some pictures of like the under coral and stuff like that. But I had made like this fake little aquarium and I put it up, and so she's just like looking in there, like everything was like kind of organized, and like I was on my like rationing. Yeah, that's what I was doing. I was rationing, so it's like everything was pretty much organized, and so it's like, but I'm focused and like, and so it's all like that conversation like, it was like, man, immaculate. And I believe I wrote something about it, and I went to like every group for like the next month talking about this immaculate, like me being like, especially in that setting, like I didn't see that word being attributed to me, based off of what I've been doing. And so it was all like, but in there I was like, man, like, it's pretty nice. And so those things do help a lot. And so those were the things that
Positive feedback.
it was like I tried to hold on to in those other moments where things were becoming there's a lot of pressure. It was seemingly insurmountable amount of pressure that was coming. And so it was like falling back on the basics or those little things to get myself to be like good and content, not necessarily content, but good and like motivated still, I guess, because at that time I did start my little 10,000 day, and I was like really pushing, but I was finishing like all my school stuff, really studying, really learning. But I took all that stuff, got that job in 2 days when I got out of the hole, and carried that with me from when I finished my when I started my next U-turn, and got out. And so when I started my next U-turn, I ended up taking from what I learned in that first U-turn on the NPR thing about the undercover billionaire, where the dude was left in the middle of nowhere with like a truck and $100, and to see if he could do it all over. And so he knew the formula. So he had a $1 million business within like 90 days or something like that, or less. But he knew what needed to be done, and he was like, he just needed to see me. And so what he did was he just started taking any job. And so at that time I was up against it again with another background. This time it was that started background police officer. But I ended up asking the job to clean the shower because I wanted to take clean showers, and I also wanted to get access to extra food. And so I was on a lot of privilege restrictions because my attitude was like, I'm maxed out. Your 115 can't do anything to me time-wise, but it was stripping me of my privileges. But without anything, I didn't care. So it was like, I already don't have nothing, so what are you threatening me with? It's all like, come on, what, you gonna take my paper? It's all like, and so it's like things like that. I had to change in my own thought process. Like, can't think like that and start, because that's the self-destructive stuff, or self-sabotage, not necessarily self-destructive. That becomes a gateway for self-sabotage if it's not done properly. But I allowed those things to be done, channeled properly, because I ended up getting the job. I was advocating for a lot of people that were going through some stuff, and for like my own stuff. So it was being channeled towards writing, like to get myself out of the conditions that I placed myself in based off of my own actions. And so from there, I got out, and then I was a college tutor, but all this time, I'm my writings and my conversation was already changing, and I was trying to really focus on the healing aspect of it, but now laying the foundation for the story that's gonna come later. And so it's all like in that shoot time, I'm asking for specific, like I need visuals, I need this, I need that, because of what I was seeing. Like, send me a picture of the bed. Like, I need to see these things. Like, I need to see. Like, this is what I need. And so they did it. They sent me stuff that I needed, because the conditions that I was in and things that I was witnessing and seeing and hearing, I needed something to focus on. And so I remember getting the Hawaii food plate. And so it's like, oh my God, like, but it was always something like that I didn't mind having a conversation about. And I felt I used to see myself living vicariously through the food that they were eating, like that you guys were eating. And so it's like anybody I'm asking, like I would ask like, oh, like what do you eat or what you guys about to eat? Like that was an easy conversation on my end in terms of what was being shared. On other conversations and other subjects, it wasn't so easily to get that same level of responsive communication or energy flowed into the conversation. And what I could attribute it to is because I'm out 2 years now and I'm still in communication with like a couple people that are locked up, family and stuff like that, but also people that I'm working with still in collaboration with for some rehabilitation stuff. And it was this unwillingness to share certain things out of fear that it might make them feel bad or they're missing out or something like that. But what it was creating for myself was like, and like for myself, I wasn't doing it, but there was other things that were being said or not said. And when I'm having conversations, like, what are you talking about? Like, dude, you know that, or that's not there, or they're like, oh, what, like, oh man, snap, like what happened? Like, and then it was like, I was like, it was interesting. I had to play back my own conversations and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's what's happening. And so now it's like, so coming home, thinking how I've been thinking, seeing that, and now still in communication with people. So this is what prompted me to want to do this whole thing with the correspondent, because in there I felt like I needed more in terms of communications, in terms of what I was asking for at times. And so I know a lot has been lost or is being lost and stripped away with consumerism and the way that, like, the disconnection with the food and all that stuff. So I wanted to find those ways of helping fuel that. And what I'm working on is growing and cooking and stuff like that, but sustainability, but also reentry stuff. And I have aspirations of working with the community. I live in Cedar right now, but within the San Fernando Valley to begin a community garden. But I wanted to start these postcards with elements and features that I was using for myself to improve conversation, but then also to kind of make like original ideas and concepts and stuff like that for the individuals. But those things will be really demonstrated in the postcard themselves. But what I wanted to do with these recordings right now, because this is just the first one, really just giving you understanding of where my mind is at, what I'm trying to do, and yeah, so I will have another specific recording around the recipes and what we're doing for the first creation of the postcard. But let's keep in mind, a lot of this is built based off of what helped me, and another key component of that was I was buying foods for moments of nostalgia and to remain connected to certain people. And so it's like I would get food items that I knew that they liked. And so like when I'm making my packages, like, okay, boom, I gotta get this because of that. I gotta get this because of that. I gotta get this because of that. And so each time I was making it or doing it, like in my mind, like, oh yeah, I'm with it. I'm connected. Like, boo boo. Like, because it's like, this is what I remember them knowing and liking. I don't know if they still eat it or not, but it didn't matter. It was that being able to build that community, even within my own mind, but those bonds, holding on to those bonds.
Yeah.
And
Like a lot of memories.
yeah, and it was like, but connecting it to the food, because the reason why I was connecting it to the food, because it was a thing that I had access to.
Yeah.
So it's like and so now with this, some of these recipes might not have access to some of the stuff and ingredients, but based off of the way I've been living my life since I've gotten out, it's almost like a lived experience or experimentation, like anthropology major, by the way, now, and theater minor, but I'm researching, and I'm flipping the script, I'm changing the narrative again, just like I did when I was locked up, going through some struggles, change the narrative, and so I'm living my research right now. How can you re-enter society that's changing and become self-sustainable and feed yourself to build, not even just for yourself, it's beyond the self-sustainability. How can you become an asset in the economy? Even in a state of financial struggle, but I'm not struggling at all, but society will deem that an individual with lack of monetary resources is a risk or is struggling because society is so dependent upon the monetization of stuff, but money in general. So outside, and money is really just, it's magic. Money could buy you stuff, and it could hoodwink you to think that you like certain things, but it can mesmerize you, it can captivate you, and it doesn't make you. It can break you though, but it doesn't make you. And so,
You're doing a lot.
yeah. Well, so that's like.
Come a long way for being out almost 2 years.
So, and like for me, I do like that, and it's like, and I have came a long way, but the way my mind works is I'm behind still, because some of the stuff, like I was detailing earlier about 6 or 3 months later, now we're finally doing things that I had previously talked about. It was like, so in terms of because in my head I already did it. It's already done, because I thought about it already. But these are like the thought experiments and stuff like that. And when you start, when I was talking about where academics and stuff is going now, in terms of like physics, metaphysics, all these things are now being studied, but these are kind of how like the mind warps reality. Is you have to give it that thing, and like right now I'm giving it that thing, like that. I'm doing my research, I'm living my research right now on how to, like, I don't know what I'm doing, I just know this is, yeah.
As you're going.
But as I live in it, I know there are other people facing similar struggles. And so it's all like it becomes that. It's like this isn't just unique to me. There are other things. Like I got multiple degrees, but what's weird about that is once I talk about it, now you're gonna put yourself at the mercy, or not necessarily at the mercy. When I detail my degrees or some of the stuff that I'm pursuing, my ambition and passion, it has this counter effect. Because now, if I need a job just to fill time, and I put these qualifications, either overqualified or
I was going to say overqualified.
but I'm being put in, like, I just need to work. I just need a job, make some money so I can fuel my goals. But it creates this weird paradigm or this weird reality of a world where you're, I don't like, I don't know what it is. I guess they feel there might be some concern that you're not going to stick around type of situation. Which if that's where it's coming from, it's fine.
That's fine.
Yeah. And so it's like, but if it's like, if my ambition is, or not necessarily my ambition, like whatever I work toward is being used to, like, not be sent to, because it's not, it's like, because the way I was seeing it in certain moments, it was like, I would be more qualified than certain individuals for certain roles or opportunities, and then they themselves will feel as if I'm there to make them look bad or try to get something that they're after. And so it was like, and if I tell them that I'm not, and I really break down what I'm, like, that would also have that other counter. It would, oh, because now from a business side of things, an individual that's willing to put in more effort on the surface, it appears that I'm putting in more effort. I'm just coming in and getting things done. I'm not putting in any more effort because I'm just trying to get it done. That's it. And so, in the long run, they're putting in more effort than me. I just get in and out. But it's makes it seem like my ambition or my drive is trying to scale up in that world. And so now, competitor within that world. And so, I'm just trying to get by. Try to create my own world. But I also know within my own world, I need to still exist within society. And so, having a part-time job, cleaning the bathroom, is not different than what I was doing when I was locked up. But the only difference is I'll be getting paid for it and I'll be able to use it to fuel my own business. And that's how I plan on making money off of my own business and skill through acting, which I'm developing right now. I'm working on my craft. So if you see me walking around crazy, bumping crazy music, playing a character right now, it's drug dealer. So yes, just understand anything that's provocative that's coming out of my mind at this moment. I will be doing this project with school for the next few months. So you might see me acting a little differently than you've seen me acting before, which was still different. But yeah, so like I'm just figuring stuff out, man. I'm trying to perform my craft, and the world is my stage. And that's how I see it now. It's not about anything else. It's me just doing what I want to do. I want to act, I want to have fun, I want to cook food, and I want to make a good living. And so that's what I'm trying to do. Trying to fuel conversations, build community, and have effective lines of communication with my friends and family that are still my friends and family, regardless of them being incarcerated. Because I actually have more connections to the people like that are locked up than I do out here. Like it's crazy, but that's what it is. It is. Like I'm being seen more by the people that are locked up than I am by the people that are out here that actually get to see me do the stuff. But it was the belief is, and faith, all that stuff is the unseen. You gotta know, like you gotta have belief in the thing that you can't see. Like that's ultimately what it comes down to. Like anything that we now experiencing came from a place of non-existence, and the individual just believes so hard that it is, and they created it. And so those people they are my demographic because they see me and from a standpoint and from a place where they know nothing could become something, but also where you're up against it.
I was gonna say, like, when you were incarcerated and you were asking for like pictures or visions for you to see what's coming, once you come home, you're an inspiration for those who are still locked up, knowing you were once here an inmate, and now you're out there, it's going on 2 years, what you have done. So they're watching you because it's like you're an inspiration to them. Like, wow, let me get myself together so I can come home to my family. They may have kids, wife, whatever, but their family, and do something that they're passionate about or that they love, and so they won't have to go back.
Yeah. And a lot of it is about the preparation stuff, because what I've been struggling with lately is this concept of what people choose to believe about another individual in terms of what they say. Like for me, when I didn't like, from my experience, the way I remember myself and what I say, and like when I say I'm gonna do something, like, and not just from the standpoint of just saying things just for the sake of saying, because I don't do that, but there are moments where I probably have said something just for the sake of ending the conversation. Like, okay, like if that's what you choose to believe, now I'm gonna sit here and let you believe it, and I'm gonna feel that false belief, and so I will give you something just to see if it gets thrown back at me. So I've done stuff in those regards, but it's very minimal where that has taken place, and that usually only takes place in terms of, do I need to end this relationship? Is this a toxic situation? Because it will show its face once that thing is thrown back at me. And so if that thing is thrown back at me, then this is definitely toxic, and no, it's not. I gotta go. I can't do it.
Sometimes you have to love people from a distance, and like
Yeah,
I love
yeah,
me, I love you, and sometimes there's people we love, but we have to love them from a distance because I love me more.
And it's about that, like, you have to,
My well-being.
yeah, that self-preservation comes into play, because you still need to find ways to be your best self. And so if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. And as long as we're not altering our own character and changing our responses in a drastic and dramatic way that would have a negative impact on it, then it's all good. So that communication stuff, and so all right, I was gonna stop this and just do another recording, but instead I'm just gonna fix that myself. But what I do want to speak about is the recipe that I want to try to create. So what I found for myself, my brand, and me in general, Ninja Turtle fan, that's something that it's a nostalgia thing, it's a childhood thing, but it's identity thing in terms of what could be told to like the younger generations about my interests and stuff like that. And that's what I noticed, like when I locked up, there were certain themes that kept on persisting. And then there's something that family upheld, but that was something that I've always yeah. And so it's like all those things. It's like it's fueling, but when you start getting into the things that were inspires people, like when I watched the Goldbergs, TV show I used to love watching. But Adam Goldberg, he wanted to be a director, and then he became a director. I mean, as a little kid, but he's detailing in this show of all the stuff he was doing as a child, and what he ultimately became. And so it was like, oh my goodness, it was like seeing those little things and seeing like, okay, that's it for me. And it's all like, if I'm getting this advice, hear that storytelling, why not try to become, like this is from an English professor. I actually was all like, why not try to develop that into something? And then it was all like, I still want to just be myself, and like my body is my body. It does what it does. It's capable of doing things other people's bodies ain't capable of doing. But my personalities also are different to certain degrees. My attitude, my demeanors, and stuff like that. There are some dramatic effects to it that are good for stage presence. And so knowing these things, now doing more than theater stuff, being able to see how these things fuel but are also used for art. And so it's all like, okay, how do I make that into something? And it's like there's nothing really preventing me from doing any of it other than me just telling myself I can't or not doing it. Outside of that, it's like if I want to write a Ninja Turtle thing, I could write a Ninja Turtle thing. Doesn't mean it's gonna get much money, but who knows? Like I might write a good story that turns into something. But the way I had to think about it and look at everything. And so on the outside, when I would be having conversations with some people, I come off as, I wouldn't say immature, but it is kind of immature-ish in me believing in some of these subjects that I'm speaking about. Because it's like, dude, you should try to become, it's like somebody trying to become a rapper in middle age type situation. I guess something you practice, but not necessarily. But in this situation that I'm speaking about, like I said, I started working with that people. I wanted to do screenwriting. Or I started with Actors Gang, and then I am teaching artists with Actors Gang after I got out because I seen what I could do for the rest of my life and be successful at it, or what I wanted to do. There was a dude named Chris, he came in there, formerly incarcerated, on parole, working as a teaching artist at New Folsom, blew my mind, and from there, like, I could do that. Like, and I wanted to pursued it. Being on that pursuit, I haven't been teaching much this year, just once, due to schedule conflict, trying to become a better student. Life circumstances forced me to put that role back first. And so, but now what I want to be able to do is, because, and this is where the demystification of what it is I'm speaking about comes into play. It's like I'm around and I'm working for a theater company that has renowned and highly successful actors and actresses and a number of other key players within the industry that I work for as a teaching artist. It would be self-destructive and self-sabotaging to not put together these things and these ideas and present it to them. Because they're there. I'm with them. And that is how you get to me. And so it's all like, that is like, to me, understood. It wasn't fully recognized until, like, because I was trying to get a couple people on board with some of my projects, but now it's like I gotta do something individual based where I don't need too many individual answers. Like I'm doing voice acting stuff. Start trying to work on my voice, improve that a little bit. So I don't really need too many people to collaborate with to get something going. But even like this podcast stuff, the creating content, things like that, just to get me in the arena, like, and to start the trajectory of things. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. Just beginning this trajectory of things and getting things out there. So my delusions, they are only delusions because I only give people a snippet of, because some of these things, it's almost like improv, like, but it's not even like improv, but some of these things, like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just doing it, or I'm being shown how to do it as I'm doing it. It's weird. Like, other people are sometimes showing it to me, but sometimes myself, or guy or like whatever it is. Like because sometimes like I'll be actually looking for certain things, like putting it out there, like this is what I need.
Presents it.
Yeah, and she was all like, oh, that's what I'm working towards. But yeah, so we're gonna be doing. I'm not gonna be cooking here today. I wish I should have. I could have, but
Schedule.
yeah. So, but the idea now was just to get this recording. I will be cooking this stuff today and making a delivery. I'm about to put that on right now. So I'll deliver it after it's done. Now, I'm making a enchilada inspired pizza. And so my brand, like I said, with the Ninja Turtle, and thing that I'm associating my stuff around is going to be around pizzas. I want to be able to bake. I want to be able to mess with the dough, so I can start doing like desserts and other pastries eventually. But that's not going to be my specialty or anything like that. What I really want to perfect is pizzas and selling pizzas. I have beef jerkies recipes that I'm developing. The dehydration process of the jerky is fully operational. The recipes themselves, I do have a sample, by the way. But so these ones are just one has like this. I put like the sesame on it, but yeah, it was hoisin. It was Asian inspired barbecue, like the hoisin sauce is a good marinade. But I didn't have at the time the Worcestershire sauce to come up with the other recipe that I wanted to work on. So I just worked with what I had, and then yeah, so that's gonna be going out. I'm gonna be making the enchilada topping pizza today. I already got the diced onions out. This morning I went to go get the enchilada sauce. So I have to, not diced onions, diced tomatoes, but I have to figure out, and olives, but I have to figure out the ratio. And so I want it to taste like an enchilada, but you gotta do the pizza justice as well. And so there's a nice little, yeah, it's gonna have to be a balance. And so as soon as I'm done with this recording, I will begin to work on that stuff. So that way we could have this thing uploaded. We get the podcast uploaded, but we can have the content and the video stuff connected to it, presented by the end of the week. I want to have my postcards ready to go by the end of the week. But the podcast itself is official, and Stir the Pot is here to stir the pot. So like it me, we're stirring the pot. So it might be some emotional stuff, might be some, I don't know what it is yet, but we're stirring the pot. So ultimately what comes out of the pot is good food. So you got some good stuff coming out of it at the end. So that's what we're aiming to achieve. Stir the pot up, make sure it doesn't burn, make sure you get to cooking, and we're trying to build new lines of communications with our loved ones that are still incarcerated, and keep them in the kitchen with us. And some of these recipes will be inspired from them. Others will be inspired from the family members to then share with either their kids. Because here's the real idea that I wanted to work with, based off of one of my cousins asking me to help mentor or just be more there for his son. And the dynamics within that is his baby mama. I know her, but their family, but they're like, there's past, and this isn't necessarily traumatic or anything like that, but it's like am I the right person to be teaching And so it's like that's kind of where it has to be as a parent. You have to like, okay, do I want this individual really like you just got locked up like X, Y, and Z? Like, do I want you really motivating and inspiring my kid? Like, and so regardless of my cousin asking me, he's locked up, but the family, like mom and all them, are still out here, and all these other things. That dynamic still takes place. And so this is a way for me to not make any, because it has been open. That opportunity to do that has been created, but for me to do it effectively, I still feel like unless I'm being asked specifically by the mother who's out here and that family, then I feel like I'm overstepping, and I don't want to do that. And even and like, but there's also urgency in this because this is a impressionable age for his son right now, and so he really wants to help right start implementing some right direction and the right path and some guidance. And so I feel like this was the way for me to come up with something to introduce myself into the conversation. And then from there, it was like I was going to, the rough idea was, boom, I'm gonna come up with, I got his letter, I took the letter, came up with some words from the letter to start the artwork, and then I drew from the, and I used ChatGPT for this, by the way. I can draw. I forgot because some of my traumas, but I'm remembering it. I'm bringing it back. Working on that stuff, but just to get the idea going, to fuel the conversation, and in scaling up, it will. I think the use of AI will allow for the individual while they're incarcerated to be more active, participating in the illustration design concept of it. But also, this will bring costs down because original art pieces cost a lot of money, people. And yeah, so yes, this will bring costs down, but the overall objective and art of this is to bring the communication into the kitchen, pass along personal recipes that either could be nostalgic or it could be traditional, or it could just be like, look, I just seen this on, like, that's why I used to take notes, and I still got my notes of things I wanted to try, and things that I wanted other people to try for me, because it was like that vicarious and so this is the vehicle for that, I believe, to start changing the conversations at times, and then also helping the conversation start being geared towards, like, in terms of like a parent being incarcerated and communicating with their child. I feel like as a child, because my dad, he was locked up, but I feel like if I was a child, I wouldn't mind talking to him about foods and recipes, especially if I knew, like, oh, this is what he liked or something like that. I feel like I could find a way to connect to that.
Kind of like with grandma and grandpa.
Yeah.
This is what she used to cook for grandpa. This was his favorite dish, which was enchiladas.
Yeah.
Or holidays, making tamales. So it brings peace and warmth and just remembering, grandma and grandpa, and making it your own recipe. Like, this is how grandma used to make it, and then putting your own twist. Like, and now your generation, you're doing another twist. So that's.
Yep. So on that note, with the because it was connected to the enchilada stuff that you gave me was the tamale and enchilada stuff. The tamale thing I remember did start when I was locked up, and so but the enchilada one when you gave it to me right now, so it's something that grandma used to make for grandpa, and so those are like the things that I want to be able to capture and being like holding on to those memories, especially while being incarcerated and stuff like that. Because how I needed certain things, like, and it was like, but these are good memories. These are good things to hold on to. It's also sharing of family history, but I feel like it will allow for an individual that's incarcerated to, like, because back to what I was saying about like the child and me being willing to hear that stuff. I don't want to hear an authority when you're locked up. So as a child, anytime my dad wanted to scold me, automatically in my head, I cut you off. That flipped switch because you're not here, you're locked up. Anything you might say to try to correct my behavior is automatically contradicted. Like, you don't even have to, like, it just automatically, it just does it. It's because it's that, like, how can, but that's for the young mind, but as an adult mind, that is sometimes a good person to get, like, advice from, like, the one that messed up, like, look, don't do this type of stuff. But for me, it's like, it's hard to, but because my communication with my dad when I was locked up wasn't good. There was a certain point where I stopped, like, having interest in the content I was passing, because otherwise I would have kept on responding. And so I feel like this is like, by sharing recipes, you're able to, because there there is subtle teaching, because I get introduced within this recipe that I just learned, okay, like a vegetable and stuff like that. And I tell you each and every vegetable, like, and that's where it's like when you start telling those things, like, no, you're gonna get that push, no. And so it's like, and this, like, man, this thing, like, and it's like you can add like the flair to it. And so to teach me to cook is really also to get people to learn how to properly cook their vegetables too, because vegetables are really good. Like, especially like a quick roasting or sauteing them, a little bit of salt, like, that's all you need. And so we've just been exposed to a lot of bad stuff, and then
Well, the crazy thing is, like, you go to McDonald's or all this fast food, and vegetables, if you go to the market, that's going to be a lot more expensive than the processed food.
Yeah. And so it's like, and so that's where, like, the sustainability stuff starts to come in too, because it's finding ways of being more cost effective. It's finding savings now. That's what this economy has pushed us towards. Is you have to find ways of saving. So sourcing and saving is the new adaptations to becoming like or remaining to remain, like, you don't want to get caught up in the drudgery of stuff, but if you're able to feed yourself properly, you don't think so much about those external pressures. You get to sit back and be like, okay, and work towards the solution. And so it's all like, but you're also healing with, like, food is healing, like, all these things, like it heals, like, not just the body, like there's foods that also heals the mind, but there's also foods that causes depression and stuff like that. And so that's like processed food, like certain things that trigger these imbalances, but there's ways of kind of like rebalancing it and getting us back to the point of community, but building, but being able to be just being able to be in the right mindset while you're dealing with adversity. And so that's ultimately what I'm trying to work towards, is how to get into a right, positive, and productive mindset that is about community and stuff like that, and healing and sharing. storytelling, but really the nostalgia of it all. Also trying to find ways to keep the individual that's incarcerated relevant within the conversations. Yeah, cause yeah, that's it. Yeah, just wanna give my mom. Tell her to say thank you. I appreciate everything for being here. I want to. Oh yeah, I made some coffee. I grind my beans because that was one thing I thought about because I always had the instant coffee. So I was like, man, when I get out, I'm gonna start grinding beans. Like, and so that's what I do. I gotta have my coffee with ground beans now. Like, it's not gonna work for me because I already went through that instant scoop for long enough. And so now it's time to mix it up, try something different. But it's also part of my brain too. I wanted to be that chef that kind of does the stuff from the beginning as much as possible. And so that's one of it. And so the rest of the stuff will be detailed later with the recipe itself. We will do a follow-up. And on that one, I will have it narrowed down in terms of the structure for how I will be conducting this with the individuals that are incarcerated because it's only that 15-minute window. Yeah. And so that one is going to be real specific around the topics, conversation, and stuff like that. And so once we do that, that will be connected to a QR code that will be for like the families and stuff like that. So they'll be able to hear the interview and conversation on what inspired their loved ones to create this postcard and this recipe and stuff like that. And so I wanted to be able to get that link to the family member so that way they can hear like how the process works and stuff like that. And so when they get their card, there'll be 2 postcards going out, one with QR going to the recipient, and then one going to the person that placed the order. And the orders will be, and there'll be 2 different ways of doing it. One would be where the individual that's incarcerated can do it, and so they'll have a different setup in terms of designing element. And then the one with family, where it's more like a surprise, or they're trying to facilitate a connection. And so that was another thing too that was in mind, was all like, because it takes a village to raise a child type thing. Like that was the thing. So it's like you don't have to wait for the next thing. Like there are certain ways that we can help conversations, and so I feel like this is a way to help communications. And so it's a way to protect, but also because not everybody like wants to be receiving certain communications, like especially direct, like word, like from certain individuals. Now, through a vehicle like this, I feel like in a nutshell, it might help. Yeah.
Like the inmate.
Yeah. So it's like. Not everybody's articulate or able to express even in writing, and so it's like that was another thing. Like, and this is not to knock anybody, but when I was younger, like this is like I got 7 degrees. I was in special education, IEP, but like my mind just and she was all like my mind
private
just
children.
and that part like. And it's like my mind just does what it does, and so it's like it will edit some stuff that I'm reading too, and I'm like, oh no, that. And I used to call my teachers out on stuff like, nope, that's wrong. And so when I used to read like my dad's letters, sometimes I'm reading the typos and the errors and the grammar and stuff like that. And in my little kid mind, I was like saying like, oh, that's supposed to be there, and I'm no longer paying attention to the stuff, and I'm like editing it, like in my head. And so it's all like, but
oh goodness, my letters that I wrote to you.
So it's all like things like that. It's all like, because some individuals might not right because they feel they not articulate enough, and they may very well be, but they like or they might not like we don't know. But this is the opportunity to, in a nutshell, take within a 15-minute conversation on the interview where we'll be able to do a little podcast thing, or they could write a letter and I could take that format and then use that to inspire the illustration. And so, yeah, that's where we're going with this. See where it goes. I got 3 cousins right now that are locked up that I'm hoping to work with, and then I got by society standards. I don't know if this is the right term. It definitely isn't the right term, but it's the way I've always described it. And so it's like I got another like so my niece, her dad is my friend, but his brother is also my friend as well, and who's still incarcerated. So it's my niece's uncle, but these are my friends ever before it was her. But they also took me in too when I was homeless at one point. And so I've always viewed them like in my head, like even like with their mom and stuff like that, like at a certain time in my life where I needed something, this became another like a family for me. And so like I got a second family. And so like when I was incarcerated, I'm telling people like, because the explanation of it took too much. Didn't really have a name for it, but then it was like the easiest way for me to explain it was like, oh yeah, that's like my brother, but they're not my brother-in-laws. And so like, but that was just like the easiest way for me to like, because it's like it's a connection that's not by blood, and so it was like they're not my friends. I mean they are, but it's more than that. And it's like so it's like I didn't want to say stepbrother because it wasn't that, and so it was like I just took the improper term and used it. But yeah, so I'm working with them, and then I got a couple other people that I'm working on some projects. We're trying to bring a resource event to one of the prisons with Project Rebound. So we're going to be able to do similar to the stuff that I was doing when I was at that prison as a college student. But this time we are expanding it to the university because at that time I was helping out with Syracuse Community College, and so I was essentially helping keep things going as a college tutor, but also organizing the spaces, making sure people are getting called out and stuff like that, showing up to classes, getting the teacher, because the teachers were there teaching, but really being that the voice for the college students. And so now what we want to do is help the next step and mentally preparing them for what's to come in terms of the expectation. And so when I got out, I just went straight to Project Rebound, and I began in the spring semester. I got out during fall, so I didn't want to rush it, but to give people the time to start preparing. And so I feel like that's something that I would have greatly benefited from had I would have been given the opportunity to do so before I got out. But also meeting the people, like seeing the people. And my thing before I left was I wanted them to see, because they seen what it took for me when I was in, like when I'm in there, like they seen what I was doing. So you see the effort already. You've seen, or you heard what I was saying. You've seen the acts of self-sabotage, the demonstration, but why things were done for a particular reason. And like it needed to be continued because I felt like they needed to see that effort being pursued beyond the prison like environment. And so outside of that, it was like, okay, once I got out, I wanted to show those same people that seen what it took to where what it's taking, just keep going. And so it's all like just to keep that And so it's all like, I feel like that is going to be a huge game changer in terms of making or helping making new pathways for individuals to become successful, because it's prep work. We gotta do prep work. We gotta build the community for their arrival. Like we have to make sure like that the individuals coming home, like yes you did harm, like some people harm the community, like for the most part if you commit a crime you usually harm something on some level. Like there's harm occur. And so it's like, but by you're going to be going back. It used to be a law when you have to go back to that specific area and you kind of go over. But regardless, you still want to reintegrate successfully. You don't want to hold people to any past traumas or triggers and stuff like that. And so being able to help foster and facilitate the prep work will at least give people an opportunity to sense or see what is being done to prepare. Where it sits now, not that many places or spaces provide enough insight into that. Because for me, there was a lot of work that I did to prepare myself for it, and it just wasn't none. Like, but it's also not taught or by prison. Like the stuff that we did for, like the stuff that I did for myself, was like other than the thing with the clinician, like outside of that, most of the other stuff, we were like, I was tired of experiencing that negative, like those conditions.
Yeah.
And so, on some level, there is a school of thought where they do things like that, where they think like, yeah, you place somebody under some, like they will change. But that's not how I changed. I didn't change by being placed under those. It was more of a disappointment in the system as a whole, and thinking that it was okay for certain, and because it becomes hypocritical. It's like you allow your protected people to commit the same atrocities that the other people were doing to other people, but it's okay for them to do it because they're protected by the back. You know,
They got back.
yeah, and so it was all like, that's not cool. And so it's all like, because sometimes those things and what it kind of makes it feel at times is like you're getting this treatment because of you. And so it's all like, sometimes like the way I treat other people is because of the way I was being treated. And then on society as a whole, not just within like my own personal interaction, like the little new, the family stuff that they're trying to attribute all this to. It's like even the stuff that I was experiencing at school. Like I experienced racism in my school, and that's what put me in the incarceral, like that's what put me in the juvenile system. And I didn't get off that till I was 20 years old, on my way to prison for attempted murder and robbery. And so it was just certain things need to be acknowledged, and certain prep work needs to be taken into consideration, and efforts to help foster, facilitate these communications, these processes are very important. Because laws are changing, people are coming home regardless. So it's like there's really nothing. Because like some people are like, especially with the youth offenders, like you got to keep in mind that the youth that offended were up under somebody else's upbringing or authority, and so that holding individuals that acted against that or rebelled against that as if they originated this behavior or thought or idea or whatever it is that they became, in general, is the wrong approach, because you start generalizing but it's like needs to allow for because at a certain point the conversations on themselves start to collapse within themselves because there's a lot of hypocrisy and contradictory, and so it's like what is actually real and authentic to me is what's actually being done.
Yeah.
I don't care about what's being said anymore. I do, but I'm paying attention to what's actually being done because the doing, and in terms of like even like with acting and stuff, like the action is what dictates like. So like you have to actually like even if there's words, it's gonna be script like there's things, but you still have to act it out. You still have to do it. Like and so like it was like that to me speaks volumes over everything else. And so like an individual just might not be articulate or deranged in the mind in terms of what they're speaking, but their action is completely different. And so it's all like, okay, but that's the discernment side and stuff. And so I feel like discernment has one way to bring discernment back through conversations. And so when we have the conversation build a community, we're able to really have that proper discernment. Because not everybody's the same. And there's, it's, things aren't 1 + 1 = 2. It's A + B = C. And that's the reality of the world that we live in. A + B = C. It's all these variables that exist. So just because one thing happened to somebody doesn't mean they're going to act that out to somebody. And so it's like not everybody acts out their traumas and puts it back out there. But
It's stop.
Yeah.
It's gonna stop.
Yeah. And so it's like we want to.
But it's called like generational curse.
Yes, like the cycle.
Cycle of that. Yeah.
Right.
It's like no, it stops it.
And so like right now, like what my family members are still locked up. This is a way for me to that and this is what another thing I was thinking about this morning is like we have to listen to people when they say what they're willing to do. Like this is what I'm willing to do to help in this situation. Like outside of that, I'm acting against my nature, and it's not gonna work. Like I'm willing to help in this regard, in this way, through cooking, through food, through communication, through this project. Like also other little components for cooking stuff which would have gone separately, but in terms of growing the direction of where I'm going, this is how I'm going. I'm not going to hang out at a park and teach you how to play sports. Like the relationship hasn't got there yet.
Yeah.
Those things will get there, but it's like in the beginning, like I'm still getting my toe in the water as well. But at the same time, it's like I need to be recognized for the things that I'm saying I want to do or I'm doing, not something that you want me to do. Yes, I could play a sport. It's not all I can do. Yes, like, and so it's all like there, and because there is a limited communication, but then also such of a casting placed upon the person, you almost get disqualified based off of that casting. Like you're incapable of. But then it's like it's in my situation. What I noticed it is like, all right, people haven't seen me long enough or know enough about me to know what it is I'm capable of doing. And so it's like, if I go and I'm just talking about like, oh, I want to act, never act before, never do this, what I'm doing, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm just learning, studying, like, and I'm in the mirror and practicing like my vocals and stuff like that. Now, there's other people going to school, they're auditioning, doing this, that, and the other, and then on the surface, I like but there's different approaches. So like I'm developing a craft, so it's like that takes. So it's like if I go over there and just start, like I might not get the same opportunity because I didn't develop the craft. Like I missed out like on a field, like manner, like all these little things that I now know that somebody else probably went in knowing, and so it's like just for like all these little things, like I would have been doing myself a disservice. And so it's all like at this point, it's all like okay, now I want you, so that is where people have full understanding, and so it's opening the line of communication. So it's like I'm opening the line of communication, showing you what I'm capable of doing, and so like with my social media, I'm putting all these little things out there. See, so you know what it is I'm doing, what I'm capable of doing, what I'm working towards, or what I'm trying to do. Because there might be something that's going to help me, but there also may be something that I actually am already good enough to start being recruited for in terms of like employment and stuff like that, opportunity.
Right.
And so it's like I'm trying
It's
to
really just getting the chance, somebody giving you the opportunity.
and that's how I want to use my social media for, it's my platform to demonstrate the things that I'm working on, working towards, and it's almost like a capsule of my days, like my activity throughout. But I'm just remaining ambitious, remaining hopeful, and still tending the garden. So got some good stuff going on over here, and I appreciate the time. We did do an hour and 21 minutes for this official conversation of the Stir Pot launch. We touched on quite a few subjects. In general, these will be similar subject matters for in-depth conversation, but for interview purposes, for the actual recipes and stuff like that, that will be shortened to 15 minutes because we're limited off of the phone calls. And I also want to just keep the conversations shorter unless they need to be broken down and a little bit more in depth. This one went a little bit further because
It's a lot of good information.
Yeah, it's like I'm sharing, giving some insight, and also like this is the first time I have a mom here and stuff like that. So I just wanted to really like provide and answer any unanswered questions that we may have had in our own conversation. So there might be things that I went over a couple times, or things that might not have fully made complete sense in terms of the postcard itself, but Stir the Pot is specifically for the postcard, but we want to be able to capture any authentic conversation that was either hindering communications, and this is the insight into some of the things that I felt is pressing matters or cause for concern in terms of what can be addressed now. So yeah, thank you. And Stir the Pot is now over.
That's good.